What is going on, y'all? This is Pay Me in Dividends, and today is January 17th, 2025. Now, before we jump into the video, let's look over the portfolio, right? So we are at $91,154, right? I'm so happy that I broke over $90,000 again. I'm trying my hardest to get over $100,000 between market performance, dividends reinvested, and contributions that I'm making to my portfolio as well. Now, I did have some questions in my comment section asking what my plan is as far as reinvestments. Am I using the DRIP method, which is the dividend reinvestment plan, which is basically just an automated way of reinvesting your dividends, or you can reinvest your dividends manually. And so for me, I choose to reinvest my dividends manually because I like to pick and choose exactly what it is I want to buy next, depending on if there's a dip. Like last video, I added 100 shares of NVDY on Monday of this week because it had pulled back a bit. And so it dipped below my call spaces. And so I added 100 shares at the time in order to lower my average price per share. So again, I reinvest manually as opposed to using the drip method, which is more of an automated way of doing it, because I have a bit more control over what I'm buying and at the price point that I'm buying it at. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. You can either use drip, you can manually reinvest. It doesn't matter what you do as long as you continue to reinvest those dividends so that you can get the compounding effect, right? Also, I do use some margin. Now, here's the thing, right? So my portfolio is around $91,000 as of today. About 80,000 and some change, we'll round up and say about 81,000 is actually all of my money. It's all equity, if you will. And so I am using about $10,000 in margin. Now, everybody's brokerage account is different. Everybody's interest rate is different. I like using the dividend tracker because I'm not a big fan of exposing my brokerage account, not right now at least. So I do enjoy using the dividend tracker. You guys can check it out if you want to use it as well. It's not completely accurate, but it does give you a ballpark range of how much you will be making on a monthly basis and an annual basis. But that's besides the point. The point I'm trying to make here is I do use margin, and I do have a lot more margin available to me in my brokerage. At this point, I believe I can actually use up to about $70,000 in margin. And again, I have about $80,000 in equity. And so my brokerage is allowing me to use, they're almost basically matching my equity as far as how much is available to me in margin. However, I have put a personal cap on margin just for personal reasons. I don't want to be anywhere near a margin call. And my theory on this as well, right? So check this out, guys. My theory is if I keep myself capped at around $10,000 in margin, that means at any point in time, more or less, I'll be able to pay off my margin within 60 days just by allowing the dividends to hit my account, right? So between 2 to 3 months, again, this number is going to fluctuate depending on how many dividends I earn that month, right? But more or less, I will be able to pay off that margin fairly quickly without the, chances of going into a margin call. So some people may think that's a bit too conservative. Some people would probably max out their margin or use a lot more margin than what I'm using. And if you have a method to the madness and you have a plan and a strategy and it works for you, hey, do it. This is not financial advice. I'm not telling you how to operate with your margin. But for me, I do tend to be a bit conservative. Because you gotta understand as well, right? With these high yield dividends, we're already being very risky, right? Compared to traditional ETFs, traditional index funds. And so I try to mitigate the risk of me already being in risky investments by not pushing the envelope too much because I want to grow my capital. I want to preserve my capital while simultaneously building up monthly cash flow. So for me, it's not just all about cash flow. That is the number one objective, but I also want to preserve my capital, and I want my principal to actually appreciate over time, right? So that's just a little backstory on my portfolio and how it is actually set up. So again, it's about $80,000 is equity, and around $10,000 to $11,000 is margin. And so I try to keep that margin in a controlled range in order for it not to get away from me too quickly, if that makes sense. So you guys let me know in the comments. Do you guys use margin? Are you opposed to it? Are you a fan of it? Do you think I'm being a bit too conservative with my margin? Do you think I'm playing it too safe? Do you think I'm still being too risky? What do you think? You guys let me know in the comments. But I think the bigger point here that I wanted to make is, you can use margin to get ahead, and if you manage it correctly, it can really be advantageous, right? So just keep that in mind, guys, right? So also the other point I want to make is you'll notice that my shares don't move significantly from video to video, right? So my last purchase was 100 shares of NVDY, right? When I averaged down, my average prior to this was about $24, and now it is at $22.98, right? But prior to that, I believe I had purchased 100 shares of RDTE, and that might have been a week or two prior. So when I receive dividends, like for example, MSTY, I just received dividends today. Today's Friday. MSTY paid dividends. They paid about $2.20 a share, and I have 1,000 shares. So my brokerage account received $2,200, right? It was $2,200 and some change, but let's just say $2,200. I did not automatically reinvest that. Why? Because I let it knock down some of my margin. And because the market is green today, which we're going to get to here in a moment, I'm not going to buy anything just yet because I'm going to wait for another small pullback or at least another red day where I can really pick my shots strategically. All right. So that's enough about my portfolio. Again, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of context as to what I'm doing, especially at the top of the new year, so you guys can understand my plan moving forward into the future. So the next thing I want to look at is the S&P 500. So again, what did we talk about in the last video, guys, right? Opportunity in the market. You can go to my video 2 videos ago and you can see that there's opportunity in the market for income investors, right? The market was red. Now look at this. Today the market is green, and if we look over the past 5 days, the market has picked back up, right? So the market has pullbacks. The market goes up, it goes down. There's ebbs and flows. But when you have those red days, you really have to take advantage of it because you never know when the market is going to pick back up, right? Same thing for the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ is up 3% in the past 5 days, almost 1.5% today, right? And Bitcoin has broken $100,000 again, right? So just 5 days ago, it had dipped down to about 90,000, right? January 13th, about 4 days ago, actually, it dipped down to 90,000. Now it has broken 100,000 again, right? It's up 8% over the past 5 days, and it is up about 2% as of today, right? So Bitcoin is a lot more volatile than the S&P or the NASDAQ, but we can see that it does continue to trend up over a period of time. And so it's good to see Bitcoin up, especially for someone like me or you who hold on to MSTY, right? Because as we know, MicroStrategy is one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin in the world. And so we can see that MSTY, by proxy of Bitcoin being up, MSTY is up today, right? MSTY is up about 2.5% today over the past 5 days, 8.5%. And listen, this is something I want you guys to take into consideration, right? When the ex-dividend date for Misty was announced, the share price was about $31.17, right? Now, what happens when they announce their dividend is the dividend is actually extracted from the share price. So we can see that the share price had dipped down, right? Once the dividend was extracted from the share price, it had dropped down to about $27.74, right? And that was yesterday. Right? Today it's at $29.60. So it jumped up about $2. It's almost recovered back to its share price before they announced their dividend for this month. So we can see that when Bitcoin is performing in a positive way, we can see that MSTY by nature is going up as well. So we got this huge dividend, right? It was about 100% annualized yield, plus the share price is recovering quickly, right? So that is a really, really good sign. Now, another one I want to take a look at is NVDY, because I also have 200 shares of NVDY, right? So we can see today NVDY is up almost 2%. There it is. It just jumped over 2%. And in the past 5 days, it is up 5%. Now, the reason it is up, right, is because the underlying NVIDIA is up 2%, right? And in the past 5 days, it's up 5%. So it's tracking its underlying pretty well. It is lagging behind a bit, but that's just the nature of these covered called ETFs or these option ETFs. But you're still receiving that huge dividend on a monthly basis. Now, another thing I want you guys to take a look at is SaylorTracker.com, right? I like keeping an eye on this just because I'm really fascinated with Michael Saylor's strategy on buying Bitcoin. And as you can see, they hold about $46 billion worth of Bitcoin, right? And so if we scroll down here, we can actually see these green dots represent every time Michael Saylor has purchased Bitcoin, right? Which is crazy. Since 2020, this chart goes back to, and it shows how much Bitcoin he's purchased and on the exact date, right? So he's been very, very consistent with his strategy, and it looks like it's paying off so far, right? If we go down here, we can see his most recent purchase was January 13th, right? He bought at an average price of $95,000 per Bitcoin. He purchased about 2,530 Bitcoins, and the total cost was about 243 million, right? And now that purchase is worth 261 million. So it's up 7%, just that one purchase over the past 4 days. And you can see most of the purchases here have been profitable, right? All the way, if we scroll all the way down back to September of 2020, all of his purchases have been profitable, right? Down here we can see he bought at an average price of 10,000, 11,000, so on and so forth. The only red I see here is back in December 23rd, 2024, so just a few weeks ago, and we can see he bought at an average price of 106,000 per coin, and so that purchase is down 3%, but everything else is up. And so MicroStrategy's Bitcoin portfolio is performing extremely well, which is a good sign for people who are invested in Bitcoin, who are invested in MicroStrategy, and by nature, if you are invested into MSTY, right? So I want to see Bitcoin continue to trend up. I want to see Michael Saylor continue to be committed to his strategy of accumulating Bitcoin on behalf of MicroStrategy. And we'll see where this goes in the future, but I think it has a bright future, right? And in the meantime, we'll continue to receive these huge monthly dividends. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is YieldMax, right? So YieldMax, I took a screenshot of a tweet that they put out. And if you guys want to stay updated with YieldMax, I would highly suggest following their Twitter page or their X page, because they do put all their updates out on their X page. Their website seems to lag in information a lot of times, even with distributions. A lot of time they'll announce it on their Twitter, and then you look at their website and there's a delay. They may not update their website immediately. But anyways, I took a screenshot of this tweet that they put out, right? January 16th, 2025. And you can see that there's another new ETF, right? So let's see what they got to say for themselves. Interested in weekly income and capital appreciation in a portfolio of 15 to 30 AI and tech stocks. YieldMax AI and tech portfolio option income ETF, GPTY, is coming very soon, right? As with any investment, there's risk. There's a whole disclaimer, right? But GPTY, right? So it looks like there's going to be 15 to 30 AI and tech stocks. I'm curious to see how this is going to compare to something like LFGY, right? Which is something that we just covered in the last video. This is also a new option income ETF that they're launching. And LFGY is an actively managed ETF that seeks current income and capital appreciation via direct investments in a select portfolio of crypto industry and tech companies, right? And this is going to be distributed on a weekly basis. And this one is going to be distributed on a weekly basis. So again, this one says 15 to 30 AI and tech stocks. If we scroll down here, we can see that these are the top holdings for LFGY. So I wonder if there's going to be any crossovers here, if there's going to be any similarities. I don't know, it'll be interesting to see. They have LFGY and they also have GPTY. Now again, this one is more crypto focused, this one's more AI and tech, but a lot of these companies tend to share a lot of similarities or kind of play within the same arena, if that makes sense, right? Just like we saw with REC shares, with CEPI, and with AIPI, there's a lot of similarities there. A lot of tech companies kind of, with the crypto title, a lot of crypto companies with the AI title. I feel like it's all kind of the same at this point, but we'll see. I'm really interested to see what this is going to be, right? So I don't know, you guys let me know in the comments, what do you think about GPTY? And like I mentioned in the last video, right, do you guys think YieldMax is spreading themselves too thin? You guys let me know in the comments. Do you think they're spreading themselves out too thin? What I do like about YieldMax is they are very innovative. They don't stop. They're very consistent, and they have a lot of assets under management. If you look at NVDY and MSTY alone, each of those both have over $1 billion worth of assets under management, just in both of them each alone. So they do have a lot of investor interest. I'm curious to see if there's enough investor interest for these new ETFs, right? But I don't know. We're going to see. We're going to see soon here. It's exciting. I don't think I'm going to invest in any of these just because they're so new. And I'm kind of a fan of sticking to what I know and what works for me, right? So I love Misty. I love its correlation to Bitcoin. I love NVDY and its correlation to NVIDIA, and the fact that it does have a decent track record relative to how new these ETFs are, right? These ETFs are still very new in the grand scheme of things, but at least we can go back to May of 2023 and get, about a year and a half going on 2 years of data when it comes to NVDY. And with Misty, they are coming up on their 1 year anniversary next month. So I'm going to stick to what I know. I'm going to stick to what's been working for me, but it will be interesting to see where these new ETFs go, right? So that's pretty much it for today, guys. I just wanted to let you guys know that the market is up after being down the past few days. And so again, you got to remember, when the market is down, right, when the market's red, you have to take opportunity. You have to take that as an opportunity and take advantage in order to position yourself so that you're in the best possible position to be successful, right? Because it was just red over the last month, but over the past 5 days, it is back up, right? So very appreciative, guys. You guys know I appreciate every single person who subscribes to this channel. It seems like every day we're adding new subscribers, new people to the team. And so always I'm appreciative, right? So as always, guys, I appreciate you stopping by the channel, and I will check y'all out in the next video.